Welcome to Chasing the Impossible. I'm Lauren Huffmaster, and I'm creating these videos because I am living with metastatic breast cancer, triple negative metastatic breast cancer, and I am approaching 10 years of living with cancer. And when I was diagnosed, 10 years was impossible. It was not even on the grid, on the radar, that we would live this long. But here I am, and now 10 years is the limit. It's the edge of what we can expect, but we don't know what's on the other side of that edge. And so as I approach this impossible milestone, I just want to record my thoughts and have conversations along the way, because I don't know what's coming in the next year for me, and I don't know what's coming in research. And so I want to just create videos that capture the journey of approaching an impossible milestone in cancer. And this morning I got up early, and I was thinking, because I'm going to have chemo in the next couple of days, and so starting today I prepare my body and really my mind too for chemo. And I was thinking about how easy it is when you're faced with suffering to be angry and to just look at the suffering, and in your grief, in my grief, of approaching another chemo session, knowing that I'll be sick and then there'll be more side effects. My neuropathy might get worse. That, who knows what will happen. In every treatment is a moment of risk. And I'm taking that risk over and over, and I suffer through the side effects over and over. And just why, why do I do this? And why do any of us go through suffering with cancer and treatments? And I was thinking about this, and I intentionally spend the days before chemo trying to, clean my mind out, remind myself what my intentions are, what my purpose is, so that I can go into chemo with a positive perspective. But as I'm approaching, I had to think about the hardships, the suffering that goes along with this disease and these treatments, and how many people I've met who are angry, in their deep grief. So much anger comes up, anger against the researchers, anger against pharmaceuticals, anger against God, and how these powers that seem to be present can't fix this problem, or haven't fixed this problem for us. And I was just thinking about how grief and anger are just connected to suffering so often, and how distrust bubbles up in that. When we can't find a solution, when we can't make sense of it, we wonder, why? The big question of why hasn't it been fixed? Why do I have to do this again and again? Why is this my life? And it's just it's really a deep longing, a longing for answers, a longing for security, a longing for someone or something that's strong enough just to make all this go away. And if that person or that company or even God exists, then why do I do this? Why do I have to continue in this path? And it's interesting to me, because when I think about it in that perspective, surely there's something big enough and strong enough out there that can take this away from me. I can see how anger and frustration and just complete distrust could become an identity. Just that is how I see the world, that there's no one I can trust. There's no one who can protect me. And that would lead to just such deeper, just anguish and even deeper emotional suffering. And then I was also thinking about, why do I, not in the big picture, but in the small picture, this week, why do I show up for chemo? Why do I put myself through one more incidence of suffering? And when I think about it, not in this grand scheme, but in the day-to-day, why do I do one more round of suffering? It's obvious, right? Because in our suffering, there's hope for something better, right? There's hope that I am pushing my disease back. There's hope for good on the other side of it, that somehow this suffering is linked to what's best for me. Somehow this chemo session will push back my cancer and give me more time with my family. Somehow this these shots that make me be in pain are linked to my overall health and well-being, even if I don't understand it. And it was just so interesting because when we want to get angry, it's very easy to get angry. It's very easy to blame people that we don't know, or even a God that we don't know, for all the suffering that surely someone could have just taken away from us. But somehow, when we're looking at a nurse in the face, or when we're looking at a doctor in the face and they say you need to do this, somehow in that relationship, we're able to trust. We're able to step forward and say, okay, I don't understand how this is working. I don't understand why I have to do this, but I trust that if you say so, I will walk through this. And it's just such an interesting perspective to me today. It's just, I do have to step forward. I do have to go to chemo. I'm going to prepare my body for the next few days, and it's not going to feel fun or comfortable. But I'm going to do it because I trust that in this process, there is good for me. There is an outcome that is for me, that is for my good. And if I step away from the suffering, these choices to engage in treatment, even greater suffering would be there for me. My cancer would grow, and I would have pain that was beyond my imagination right now, and I would not be able to stop it. But it's somehow in this tension, in this engaging in the process, that I have some level of suffering, but also levels of good that are not available to me otherwise. And so I continue to engage, right? I continue to remember my family and the purposes that are behind these treatments, the intention, the why. Why do I show up? I show up so that I can have more time with my kids, so I can have more fun with my family, and I can live here and make a difference on this world. And so I keep showing up, and I suffer in it. It doesn't take away the presence of suffering, for sure. The next 10 days will be a season of pain, but at the same time, there's good, right? There's purpose. There's hope, even hope that my cancer will get pushed back. And somehow, if we can just hook our suffering with our hope, we can move forward, and we can find purpose in our life. We can find purpose in our relationships, and even in our relationship with suffering. But instead, if we hook our suffering with anger, or just let our grief overwhelm us, then that suffering becomes more who we are. There's no escaping the cycle. There's already no escaping my cycle. I'm going to be in treatment the rest of my life. But if I hook that suffering with grief and anger, and that's the only thing I see in the suffering, then my suffering is all encompassing. It's mind, body, and soul. And so I was just thinking about this tension, I think, about trust in relationship, when trusting a doctor or even a God in my suffering, and how that can pull me forward and give me internally, give my mind and my soul peace in the external suffering and the bodily suffering, and how that helps me escape the cycle, helps me escape the fear, really. It soothes my grief. It is a sacrifice. There's no doubt about that. Every treatment is a sacrifice, and I have to intentionally choose it in order to move forward. But my mind and my body, my mind and my soul are sort of free from the cycle of suffering when I lean into relationship, and when I lean into trust, and I know the reasons why I show up.